What you're witnessing isn't mere geopolitical chaos. It's a celestial countdown that was prophesied thousands of years ago. The missiles launching across Middle Eastern skies are more than weapons, they are harbingers, cosmic punctuation marks in the divine timeline. Each headline about Iran and Israel that flashes across your screen is another piece falling into the prophetic puzzle designed before time began. Many feel it in their souls, that deep, unnamed trembling that something monumental is unfolding. They're right. The ancient scrolls speak of this precise moment when Persia, modern Iran, would position itself against Israel in the latter days. This isn't politics, this isn't religion. This is prophecy materializing before your eyes, while sleeping souls remain blind to the divine signatures in today's events. To understand the prophetic shadow falling over today's Middle East, we must first journey back through the corridors of time. Ancient Persia, modern Iran, and Israel share an intertwined destiny that few comprehend. This relationship was divinely orchestrated from the beginning. When Israel lay captive in Babylon, their temple destroyed, their hope extinguished, God raised an unlikely liberator, Cyrus the Great of Persia. What's remarkable is that Isaiah had prophesied about Cyrus by name 150 years before his birth, calling him God's shepherd and anointed one. In 539 BC, Cyrus conquered Babylon and immediately issued a decree allowing Jews to return to Jerusalem and to rebuild their temple, even funding the reconstruction from the royal treasury. The Book of Esther reveals another critical moment when again Persia and Israel's destinies intertwined. Haman, a high Persian official, plotted the first attempted genocide of the Jewish people. Yet God positioned Esther for such a time as this to save her people, turning certain destruction into divine deliverance. This ancient relationship transformed dramatically in 1979 with Iran's Islamic Revolution. The monarchy fell, replaced by a theocratic regime that labeled Israel the Little Satan. The Persia that once restored Israel now vowed its destruction. This shift wasn't merely political, it was spiritual, aligning precisely with prophetic patterns described in Ezekiel's ancient vision. The stage was being set, the actors taking their prophesied positions, as the divine countdown continued its relentless advance toward the final act foretold millennia ago. Now we must turn to the prophetic text itself, Ezekiel 38, a passage that has left biblical scholars trembling for centuries. Written approximately 2,600 years ago, this prophecy describes with surgical precision the geopolitical alignment we're witnessing today. The prophecy speaks of Gog, of the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. Ancient rabbinical texts and modern scholars identify this confederation as regions corresponding to modern Russia, Turkey, and parts of Central Asia. These nations form the Northern Alliance that will move against Israel in the latter years. But the text specifically names another key player, Persia. Not Babylon, not Assyria, but Persia, modern Iran, explicitly mentioned as part of this coalition. The prophet saw across the millennia that Iran would align with this northern confederacy against Israel. This wasn't a geopolitical analysis, it was divine revelation. Ezekiel describes Israel as a nation brought back from the sword, gathered from many peoples on the mountains of Israel, which had long been desolate. This precisely mirrors modern Israel, re-established in 1948 after nearly 2,000 years of exile, a fulfillment so extraordinary it defies statistical probability. The prophecy continues to describe this invasion occurring when Israel dwells securely. Some interpret this as peace, but the Hebrew term batach can also indicate a sense of self-confidence or self-reliance, accurately reflecting Israel's current military posture despite being surrounded by hostile nations. What's most chilling is how Ezekiel describes the response of certain nations. Sheba and Dedan, corresponding to Saudi Arabia and Gulf states, along with the merchants of Tarshish and all their young lions, likely referring to Western powers, merely questioned the invasion but failed to intervene militarily. We're witnessing this precise realignment today as Saudi Arabia and Gulf states quietly improve relations with Israel while distancing from Iran, and as Western powers show increasing reluctance to be drawn into Middle Eastern conflicts. The divine fingerprints on current events are unmistakable. The prophetic template is being fulfilled with precision that should awaken even the most skeptical observer. The symbolic patterns emerging from today's geopolitical reality mirror the prophetic template with uncanny precision. Consider the three concentric circles forming around Israel today. The inner circle Iran's proxies, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, Houthis in Yemen, and militias in Syria and Iraq. They form a ring of fire around Israel, exactly as ancient texts described the surrounding of the beloved city. The second circle, the coalition, Iran, Turkey, and Russia have formed an alliance unprecedented in modern history. Their military cooperation, joint exercises, and shared anti-Western stance create the exact alliance Ezekiel foresaw. Russia's military presence in Syria, Turkey's neo-Ottoman aspirations, and Iran's quest for regional hegemony aren't random developments, they're prophetic pieces clicking into position. The outer circle, the passive observers, Western nations and moderate Arab states who protest verbally but offer minimal resistance. The Abraham Accords between Israel and Gulf states fulfill the prophecy of Sheba and Dedan's neutrality. Even the motivation described in Ezekiel, to take plunder and seize spoil, aligns perfectly with Iran's desperate economic situation under sanctions and Russia's resource ambitions in the Mediterranean. These aren't coincidences. They're prophetic echoes, divine patterns repeating across the tapestry of time. What we're witnessing isn't just history, it's prophecy unfolding before our eyes, but we must approach these revelations with sobriety and discernment. Many throughout history have claimed to witness prophetic fulfillment, only to be proven wrong by time's unfolding. So we must ask, what makes our time different? Is this merely pattern-seeking in random events? Could we be imposing biblical frameworks onto unrelated developments? These are questions the sincere seeker must confront. Yet consider the unprecedented convergence of factors, Israel's restoration after 2 millennia, exactly as prophesied. The specific nations named by Ezekiel aligning precisely as described. The technological capability for the whole world to witness events simultaneously, fulfilling Revelation's vision that all peoples of the earth will see. The acceleration of these alignments should give us pause. For 2 millennia, these prophecies remained largely unfulfilled. Yet in our generation, they materialize with breathtaking speed. The greatest challenge isn't accepting that prophecy is being fulfilled, the evidence grows to compelling. The real challenge is personal. If these ancient words are proving true, what does it mean for how you're living now? What does it mean for your soul's eternal destiny? These are the questions that should haunt your waking hours. Beyond the visible geopolitical chessboard lies the true nature of this conflictive spiritual battle that began before time. What appears as tension between nations is merely the physical manifestation of an ancient cosmic struggle. Iran's leadership operates from an apocalyptic Shiite ideology that believes creating global chaos will hasten the return of the Mahdi, their Messiah figure. This isn't merely politics, it's eschatological warfare. Their hostility toward Israel isn't just territorial, it's spiritual, targeting those whom Scripture calls the apple of God's eye. The spiritual dimensions extend further. Ezekiel reveals that this coalition will be drawn by divine orchestration. I will put hooks in your jaws and lead you out. The Hebrew suggests not merely permission, but divine causation, God actively bringing these nations against Israel for his ultimate purpose. Why would God allow such conflict? The prophecy reveals the answer. I will show my greatness and my holiness. Then they will know that I am the Lord. The ultimate purpose isn't destruction, but revelation of final, undeniable demonstration of divine sovereignty in human affairs. This spiritual reality transforms how we understand current events. Headlines about Iranian nuclear ambitions, Russian military movements, or Turkish diplomatic positions aren't merely news, they're spiritual signposts. The unseen realm is making itself visible through world events. The ancient Persian spiritual powers that Daniel's text tells us opposed the archangel for 21 days are still at work, manipulating human affairs toward conflict with Israel. But just as in Daniel's time, these powers are ultimately subservient to divine purposes. What appears as chaos to human eyes is order in the divine timeline, each event moving inexorably toward the prophesied culmination. Now, I speak directly to your spirit. How does this revelation impact your daily existence? What does it mean for your position in the divine timeline? Close your eyes for a moment. Feel the weight of living in prophesied times. You are not witnessing random history, you are experiencing pages of prophecy turning before your eyes. This realization should transform your perspective on everything. Many live as if these are ordinary times, planning decades ahead, accumulating treasures on earth, while ignoring the celestial signs flashing around them. They sleep spiritually while prophecy fulfills itself in headlines. Will you be among them? The wise of heart use prophetic awareness not for fear, but for preparation, not for panic, but for purpose. They recognize that being alive for such a time as this carries both privilege and responsibility. Ask yourself, if you truly believed you were living in the generation that might witness the culmination of age-old prophecies, how would you live differently tomorrow? What relationships would you repair? What truths would you boldly proclaim? What spiritual preparation would become urgent? The heavens are speaking through events on earth. The question isn't whether prophecy is fulfilling its, whether you're fulfilling your prophetic purpose in response. The conflict between Iran and Israel transcends their modern incarnations. It embodies an archetypal pattern repeated throughout sacred histories across civilizations. This isn't merely a political struggle, it's the latest manifestation of an age-old spiritual archetype. Consider how this pattern appears across traditions. In ancient Zoroastrian texts from Persia itself, we find the cosmic war between Ahura Mazda light and Ahriman darkness. In Hebrew tradition, it's Jacob wrestling with the angel, transformed and renamed Israel, one who struggles with God. In apocalyptic literature, it's the final battle before divine intervention reshapes reality. This archetypal conflict appears with remarkable consistency, a gathering of forces against the divine covenant people, followed by supernatural intervention that reveals divine sovereignty. From the Exodus story where Egypt's military might collapsed against divine power, to David facing Goliath, to the Maccabean revolt, the pattern repeats. What we witness today isn't new, it's the latest iteration of this cosmic template. Iran, modern Persia standing against Israel creates the same archetypal tension that preceded divine intervention throughout sacred history. The prophet Daniel described it as the clash between the prince of Persia and Michael, the great prince who protects your people. The human conflict we observe is merely the visible manifestation of an unseen cosmic battle that has raged since ancient times. We're not just watching nations in conflict, we're witnessing archetypes fulfilling their predestined roles in the divine narrative. Now we must confront the most profound aspect of Ezekiel's prophecy, the divine intervention. For this isn't a prophecy that ends with Israel's destruction or even with conventional military victory. It culminates with supernatural divine manifestation. The text describes God's response to this invasion with language that defies conventional warfare. I will summon a sword against Gog on all my mountains. I will execute judgment on him with plague and bloodshed. I will pour down torrents of rain, hailstones, and burning sulfur on him and on his troops and on the many nations with him. This isn't describing conventional military defense, but divine intervention of apocalyptic proportions. The scale is so extraordinary that Ezekiel reports it will take 7 months to bury the dead and 7 years to clear the weapons. But here is the revelation hidden in plain sight. The purpose behind this cataclysmic event isn't destruction, but revelation. The text states, "And so I will show my greatness and my holiness, and I will make myself known in the sight of many nations. Then they will know that I am the Lord." This is the prophetic crescendo, an event so unmistakably supernatural that it forces global acknowledgement of divine reality. A world built on materialist assumptions that has marginalized faith and mocked divine intervention will witness an event that cannot be explained by natural causes. The Iran-Israel conflict isn't moving toward mutual destruction, it's moving toward divine revelation. The final purpose isn't the triumph of one nation over another, but the unveiling of divine sovereignty before a watching world. This revelation should both humble and embolden us. We aren't merely spectators to geopolitical events, we're witnesses to the preliminary stages of a divine unveiling that will ultimately transform human consciousness. In light of these profound revelations, what shall we do? How shall we live as watchmen who understand the times? First, banish fear from your heart. The same God who declared these events thousands of years ago has promised to never leave nor forsake his people. These prophecies weren't given to produce panic, but preparation, not terror, but transformation. Rest in divine sovereignty while the nations rage. Second, become a spiritual intercessor, not merely a political commentator. Pray for divine mercy in the midst of judgment. Pray for the innocent in both Iran and Israel. Pray for leaders to seek wisdom beyond human understanding. Your prayers participate in shaping these prophetic events. Third, purify your life with urgency. If the celestial countdown is indeed approaching its completion, now is the time for spiritual housecleaning. Remove anything that would hinder your readiness for divine unveiling. Fourth, become a messenger of hope. Share these revelations not to frighten, but to awaken. A world trapped in materialistic slumber needs witnesses who can interpret the times with spiritual discernment. Finally, live today as if it matters eternally, because it does. Each choice, each word, each action carries cosmic weight when viewed through the lens of prophetic fulfillment. Brothers and sisters, we are not merely passing through history, we are experiencing the convergence of time and eternity, of prophecy and fulfillment, of the seen and unseen realms. What a privilege to be alive in such a time. What a responsibility to be worthy of this moment. Maranatha, our Lord comes. Watch the prophetic shadow as it gives way to approaching light. Don't forget our next video, The Mystery of the Prince of Peace, how wars are preparing the way for the Antichrist. Keep the flame burning, continue your vigil.